What's going on, everybody? Out here today in Central Ohio in a past work area. Believe it or not, what I'm standing in used to be bright green, non-native European turf grasses. And through a series of basic management practices, we removed that and introduced just a little bit of native grass seed, and the rest of the plants popped up around here. Different native wildflowers all came up from seed. Native plants that were here in the soil, free seed. So this was a massive lawn that was taking forever to mow, and I'd rather see wildlife. So reduced that lawn down by about 2/3, still have a nice lawn, plenty of green space to hang out, but was able to replace that with highly beneficial and super desirable and necessary wildlife habitat. And the response from the wildlife has just been awesome. So we're getting into winter. It's again one of our favorite times to do management practices and get out in the woods running chainsaws. And in this situation, we actually got out and were able to do a small scale logging project. And we wanted to bring you guys this segment from our course that we launched this past spring, where we took you through what that looks like, some of the before and afters, so you can see what to maybe expect and if that's a scenario that could be applicable to you. If you enjoy the video and you want to see the full course, we'll have the link down in the description. It's about a 50-minute video we put out this spring. Really awesome, super informative. We think it would apply to a lot of people here in the Midwest. If you want to see more content here on our YouTube, be sure to subscribe. We'll have more videos coming here in the coming weeks. Thanks for watching. All right, getting some March snow flurries out here on what we call Blackberry Point. We're doing some logging. Really cool ridge point that extends out into the main valley where the center of the farm is. So we're up here on this big, it's almost like a secondary point that comes off the main ridge. You can see the main ridge running up in the background. Down here today, I got my log hauler pulling in right now. He's gonna load up these logs with his picker truck. Time to get paid, hopefully, on these things. I believe we're sitting right around 32 logs. One black walnut there, big red maple, hickory, lots of yellow poplar. Yellow poplar and hickory is what we hit pretty hard on this go around. Real nice hickory log there. This thing right here is an absolute beast. Beast of a poplar, yellow poplar. Big red maple there. So Jerry thinks we got at least 2 full log trucks. That's what we were aiming for. We were able to measure the logs standing to get a ballpark idea of how many board feet we were taking down, and we know how many actually will fit on this truck. So we're able to get it pretty darn close. So we'll see how we did. This was the last log that came out the other night. That's a huge red maple. That thing was sitting on a south slope that we're gonna open wide open into some nice, basically what's gonna be upland habitat. So we're going from maple forest to open upland game bird habitat. Some large scale improvements. Woo, that's a big one. As exciting as it is to have upwards of 2 log trucks coming out of here, the areas we're working on, that's just a small fraction of what we got to get out of here timber-wise. We focus a lot on the poplar and hickory, leaving most of the oaks on these sites. Oak's a little bit slower growing tree, so for every poplar and hickory we were taking out, in most cases we were releasing 3 or 4 smaller oaks for a future harvest, as well as that's going to allow those oaks to produce more mast and drop more acorns in the fall. So we're doing an improvement thinning. We're also just reducing the number of trees per acre. It's going to get a little more sunlight down to the ground. A lot of these species, those stumps are going to sprout and they're going to come up, as opposed to being one tall tree, they're going to come back with 3, 4, 5 tops down at a level that wildlife's able to use. So this is pretty exciting, but we got a lot of uphill work to go. I'm not going to be happy with this particular area until I'd say we get probably 2 to 4 more truckloads of logs out of there. Then I'll feel like we're kind of on cruise control. From there, we're going to start to get back on a regular fire regime and manage the understory like that until the day comes where we get to thin out the timber again and do another harvest on those oaks. Habitat management really is a multi-generational thing. This isn't something you come out and just manage it for the weekend or the year. This is habitat. This is habitat that's going to last longer than my lifetime. These are big changes that's going to have a real impact on wildlife. Look at the longevity of what you're really doing. Are you really making an impact on the landscape and on the wildlife that live there? Something to think about.
And we're standing now in an area we call Blackberry Point. we did some thinning work in here that was actually merchantable. We actually sold logs, we logged in here. In an improvement thinning like this, the goal is basically to leave the best trees in the stand to grow to the future. We had a fully stocked stand before, came in and we cut a lot of the mid-story out. We cut a lot of the overstory out that was merchantable. And then if there's any junky trees that were in the overstory, we took those out as well. We're sitting with probably a 60 to 80 square foot basal area. Larry mentioned that term earlier. You'd have to go in and actually take some measurements to see that, but that's essentially what we're looking at here. We're gonna get probably 20 to 30% sunlight to hit the ground now. We've got a productive understory that we're gonna manage with the techniques we're gonna talk about later. And we've got, as you can tell, plenty of browse for deer behind us, plenty of cover for ground nesting animals, and it's completely changed the look of this woods. This was wide open timber beforehand.
Yep, and like Ben mentioned, it was a thinning, so the majority of this canopy in here is oak hickory, but most of the species we were taking out were some of the faster growing ones. So the poplar, those were kind of dominating a little bit more, so those were just almost outpacing the majority of the rest of the stand. So we selected those out, took out a few hickories. Those were quite a bit larger, at least some of the larger ones in this specific spot. Again, just evening out the stand. So the trees that are remaining, they're here for a later harvest where we can come in and do a different, types of harvesting, but it'll be here for another harvest later.
Yeah, we left plenty of trees in the small saw timber category, so the thought is that in the future we should be able to do another thinning in here that's saw timber. We didn't take it down to a bunch of pole size stuff that is not going to be mature until we're super old. So with sunlight and good weather in here, we should have another good harvest in 20 years or so.
Yep.
So we're standing over a red maple stump. That's a good example of the kind of trees we were taking out. We pounded on this tree beforehand and it showed some decline, and we assumed that it was hollow, just being an old field edge tree like it is. Sure enough, cut into the tree, this section here is hollow. We were still able to salvage a lot of that tree up above that little budded off section. The tree was still growing super fast. It was a very dominant tree, but now we've got a couple red oaks behind Keith, white oak here. It's gonna get more sunlight, and that's gonna open the canopy for all the trees around too. Obviously this tree's not growing in any value. It's growing in size, but that rot's never gonna stop. It's just gonna keep rotting out and eventually probably compromise the tree structure.
All right, so we're standing in the area we did the improvement thinning last winter. You can see some of the forb response in here. Just all the vegetation in here is just taken off. We noticed a couple invasive species, the Japanese stiltgrass. We're pretty sure that came off of our logging trail on the rubber tracks within the skid steer. So we're just kind of formulating our plan and kind of just assessing the area just to see how things are progressing and what management we need to do in the future. And I think outside of the stiltgrass, otherwise things look really awesome in here, don't you think, Ben?
Yeah, Larry came in and sprayed a lot of multiflora rose last year. I mean, you can tell there's not a lot of it coming up. I see some really small ones, but we'll keep up on that probably with fire. That's a good segue into what we were talking about, kind of the species that we were taking out. We're trying to favor leaving a lot of species that are fire tolerant, that have leaves that promote fire, because that's going to be our maintenance tool to keep these areas from getting up above the level where we want them to be.
So the oak also grows a little bit slower, so you can kind of see what we're left with after we thinned out some of those taller species is a lot of the oak, which, like Ben said, that's going to be better for carrying fire. Those oak leaves are going to burn better for us and allow us to just maintain this understory in the future.